Everyone has probably heard of the term neoliberalism, but very few people actually understand what neoliberalism is. Neoliberalism has been the dominant ideology or political mindset of the last 40 years. This political ideology has brought us the economic crisis of 2008, the offshoring of wealth and power, the privatization of the U.S. prison system, caused the collapse of public health and education, and created one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. So what really is neoliberalism, where did it come from, and why do people subscribe to it? Neoliberalism is often referred to as the resurgence of the laissez-faire ideology, that economic philosophy of free market capitalism that opposes government intervention and was responsible for the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression. Yeah, that ideology. In short, neoliberalism promotes the idea that society should be shaped by the free market and the economy should be deregulated and privatized. Proponents of neoliberalism believe that an unregulated free market has the greatest possible effect on the largest number of people. So where did the neoliberal ideology come from? Neoliberalism emerged as a political economic ideal through the writings of the Austrian-British economist Friedrich Hayek and became popularized during the 1970s by Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, who revitalized neoliberal ideals by proposing pro-market reforms under the banner of conservatism fused with social liberalism in the face of growing market concerns such as inflation. A defining feature of neoliberal thinking is that there is no a priori distinction between the realm of the political and that of the economic. In other words, neoliberals argue that what works in the private sector should also work in the public sector. Specific economic tenets of neoliberalism include no price control, which prevents governments from establishing a maximum price for goods and services on the free market, reducing marginal tax rates, which keeps federal and state taxes low as to keep the market flowing more efficiently, deregulating markets. This reduces government influence in the free market by eliminating regulations that hamper economic growth. Free trade. This allows international trade to continue without restrictions, such as tariffs. Finally, reducing or eliminating government spending to keep government debt low. With that in mind, the specific political tenets of neoliberalism include deregulating private industries to limit the amount of control the government has over business or enterprise operations, reducing entitlement programs, in other words, limiting government spending on programs like Social Security, welfare, food stamps, and public health care, reducing or eliminating public ownership. This prevents the government from having claim on a private enterprise or property, reducing labor union influence, which promotes maintaining a workforce and allowing businesses to operate without the influence of organized labor unions. Presently, there is no pure, perfect example of a neoliberal state. This is largely because neoliberal reform is perpetually incomplete as it chases ideals. In order for a truly neoliberal state to occur, people would need to be convinced that state institutions are corrupted and all need to be reformed. However, a great example of neoliberalism is the World Economic Forum, rich billionaires and elites debating ways in which the market is the best solution to all problems. That's not to say that neoliberalism doesn't exist. It's been shaping political policies all around the world for the past 4 decades. So in summary, neoliberals believe that the state is a central tool for advancement of a neoliberal agenda. The commitment to a strong state that can tackle challenges to capitalist competition is the defining feature of neoliberalism as an ideology and economic system. As a result, neoliberals critique and reform the state by privatizing mechanisms of state control in order to increase profits for investors and create new privately owned markets. Lower taxes, you say? That sounds great. Hold up. Privatizing economic systems is not always the best solution where natural monopolies could occur. Look at the criticisms of long-term care homes in Canada during the COVID-19 pandemic, the recent collapse of the Texas power grid, or the booming business of the U.S. prison system. You guessed it, all neoliberal policies. This surge in a neoliberal capitalist world order has repudiated the ideals of the welfare state in favor of a deregulated free market system, whose rules benefit the rich and do little to level the playing field for the poor. Not only are neoliberal reforms idealized, but they're also downright unsustainable. For one, the principles on which neoliberal reforms are based on are assumptions about market activity based on economic theory that is, at best, a pseudoscience that falsely assumes that all people are rational economic actors. Additionally, it encourages rent-seeking by corporations who seek to bend the institutional framework of the state to their will in order to maximize profits by any means necessary. It commodifies people and privileges economic growth over public happiness, and it uses new public management to run the state like a business. When states are run like a business, it decreases the accountability of democratically elected officials and increases the likelihood of fraud, corruption, and other white-collar crimes. Moreover, neoliberalism naturally breeds a technocratic way of administration where public officials possess formal technical knowledge but have very little experience with government administration. A neoliberal state is a state of corporations, by corporations, and for corporations with an increased focus on productivity and not enough on people. To point to any singular piece of evidence against neoliberal reform would require a case study of most Western states to determine which policies have led to the erosion of democracy in the middle class, as well as neglect social inequalities. However, the 1980s and the Reagan administration is a great place to start. During his presidency, the result of increased privatization and diffusion of government control led to expensive public goods such as healthcare and the deterioration of public interest. In conclusion, if you're in the 1%, neoliberalism is great. Otherwise, not so great.